I think I learned a lot of that on my mission, is just talking to people. You hear, I mean, you can have a conversation with anybody and almost always
there's something
just wild. Like people, that's the thing, is people think that they don't have an interesting life or interesting story to tell, and it's really like you just don't understand.
I hope I can prove you right.
Well, yeah, let's start with first and foremost, I want everybody to know what you do for work.
That's a great question. My kids still don't even know what I do for work.
I kind of felt that was the case.
People ask my wife, and she says, "I'm not really sure what he does all day." Because she'll ask how my day's like. I'm like, "Man, it was really busy." And she's like, "Well, what do you do all day? What can you be busy with?" It's really crazy.
What's your title first?
My current title is the Associate Director of Emergency Management at Washington University.
At Washington University. Okay.
So I got into the field of emergency management. I did it publicly for local government, and then I came up here and did it for university.
And you've done stuff like this before.
Yes, I started back in 2005. I went down to Hurricane Katrina, and that was my first kind of introduction to disasters, and I've been doing it ever since. So 20 years now.
But you went down to Hurricane Katrina?
Yeah, I was down there for 6 weeks, helping them recover from. I was assigned to Mississippi. There were 5 coastal counties in Mississippi that got annihilated by Hurricane Katrina, and I was on the recovery team with FEMA to help them right and recover from the disaster, from the hurricane, to help rebuild it.
That's crazy. I do want to come back to that. But what made you? How do you find yourself in emergency management? I have a hard time believing that 5th grade Ryan Nicholls was like, I want to be an emergency management guy when I grow up.
Yeah, when I decided to do it, I didn't even know what it was either. I kind of went in on faith. So in my previous life, I was a nurse. I went to nursing school. I was a registered nurse.
Your previous life?
That's before I got into emergency management. So I went to nursing school, got a nursing degree.
You got a nursing degree?
Yeah, I worked as a nurse for 5 years.
I had no idea.
In a neural trauma intensive care unit down in Springfield, Missouri. So I got my associates, got my registered nurse license, went on to get my bachelor's of nursing, and worked as a critical care nurse. And I had 2 kids at the time, 3 was on the way, and I knew at that time I needed or wanted to finish my schooling. If I stopped going to school, I knew I probably would not come back. So I needed to go on, and I wanted to get at least some type of advanced degree, a master's degree.
Tell me what a critical care nurse. I mean, I assume it's exactly what it sounds like, but is it like exclusively you just deal with people that are in is that what it is, in critical condition people?
Yeah, so I worked in a hospital in the neural trauma intensive care unit. So anyone that had some type of severe trauma, car wrecks were common, motorcycles, or had some type of neurological challenge, a stroke or a bleed, whatever, a head injury, whatever it may be, they came to our unit and we took care of them. So it's like a 1 to 2 patient per nurse ratio. So you're working just on them, and you saw a lot of crazy accidents and reasons why people were there. And I worked in that field. I worked in that for about 5 years.
Was that just nasty?
It could be. It was, when the trauma comes into the emergency room and you go to see what you have, there's all the stories are there of people that doing, it wasn't their fault. It was their fault. They weren't being very smart about things. They were climbing trees and falling off and all kinds of crazy stuff. We're riding on their motorcycles and at high rates of speed with no helmet, and that didn't work out for them. So all kinds of stuff.
So was there anything where you felt like, because I feel like you would think that you know what to expect to some degree, but was there anything that happened where you were like, this is above my pay grade? Or are you just not squeamish at all?
I'm not squeamish, but as a nurse, if anything was complicated, I'm following the doctor's orders. And there's a very strong or good nurse-doctor relationship. I knew the doctors, they knew me, and if things were complicated, 3 a.m, if I had a patient go bad, start to turn, I could call a doctor and get guidance and direction of what needs to be done. So I never got overwhelmed in that case because I always knew I had a safeguard to fall back.
But there weren't any patients where you were just like, I can't do this one. Like, this is
only one. And it wasn't my patient, but anytime a trauma comes in to the hospital, I was assigned to go to the emergency room to see what it was, to see if they're coming to my unit. Well, I had just had my daughter. She was maybe not even 2 years old, just a beautiful little blonde little girl.
Your first one?
My first one. Well, the trauma that came in was a 2-year-old little blonde little girl.
Oh, you're kidding me.
And I couldn't do it. I had to walk out of the room and ask someone to take my place. That one emotionally got to me because I associated it with my daughter. I'm like, I couldn't do pediatrics. It had to be older for me. And then I could separate myself. It was just whatever that was.
No pediatrics for you from that time on.
My unit never took pediatrics.
Okay.
But I just stayed away from pediatrics. I just couldn't do it. It was just too much of an association with my own kids that I couldn't. When you're in that trauma field, you have to disassociate yourself from the situation emotionally. You have to fix the problem and not get emotionally attached, no matter what it takes, because you're going to inflict pain on them, unfortunately, to help heal them. There's a lot that has to be done. And you just have to disassociate the carnage, the bones you see, or the blood, or the tissue, whatever. You see bones stick. All the nasty stuff.
You just stick to the job.
You just stick to the job and focus on the job, and you can't associate it as I couldn't in that moment. Now, that's probably not the right thing to do long term because you're taking care of a human being and you want that emotional connection or that support to them. But as a nurse, I separated myself emotionally and just took care of the problem.
Do you feel like people get into that line of work that may not be able to, that maybe shouldn't be in that line of work?
Yeah, for sure. There's some people that may get too connected emotionally and unable to do it, or they couldn't handle the medical trauma that comes with it or the stress. But there's all kinds of nursing. You don't have to be in trauma.
Right.
There's all kinds of nursing that doesn't necessarily do, but you got to have a strong.
Is crossing is moving from one nursing department to the other pretty easy?
It happens all the time. Yeah, people move around all the time.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
So my son was thinking about going to nursing, and he was in or medical field, and he was in an anatomy class, and he calls me and he goes, "Dad, they were showing childbirth, and I got lightheaded and passed out." Should I stay in the medical field? I'm like, no, that's probably a bad sign.
Yeah.
You get that from your mother. I wouldn't do that.
If you can't handle childbirth.
I was like, so he switched. He doesn't do that anymore.
That's funny. Well, he's planning on having kids.
Yeah. And that's the way Angie, my wife, is. If she's home alone, if I'm not there, she'll do what she's got to do with a head cut or a cut or of any sort.
Yeah.
But if I'm there, she gets lightheaded, she passes out. She can't even look at anything when it comes to blood or injury, unless I'm not there. Then her motherly instinct kicks in, and she just does what she's got to do.
That's crazy.
But she can. So one
That's
time,
weird.
We're working out in the backyard, and I'm pulling the big old stump out of the ground, and I'm using a big old pry bar. Well, it pops, and I knock myself in the head, and I pass out. Well, she comes over to help me, and she sees the blood, and she passes out.
No way.
So we both came to, having had passed out for a few minutes, and our daughter is like 4 or 5 at the time, and she's walking around trying to figure out what mom and dad are playing or doing. But we figured it out. But
you were out for a few minutes.
I don't know.
Just
I know I was out.
out.
I know she was out.
Oh my
we
gosh.
came to. We figured it out.
That's crazy. I never grew up. I grew up with hardly any fear of needles or blood or anything like that. Like my brother struggled with that. But now I find myself struggling a little bit more. I'm still I'm still okay, but sometimes like I'll get the chills or it'll make me feel a little bit more nervous, which is weird. Like
or lightheaded is common, or you just
it's something that's happened later in life though. I typically did not experience that growing up, but so what made you? What was the day where you were like emergency management time?
9/11. 9/11. So I was in nursing school, and 9/11 happened, and I was really caught up in what happened with that event, that terrorist attack on America. And
what do you mean you were caught up with it?
I was just engrossed in the news of it and what was happening and everything that was going on and why. And
on your own accord, like you were just
on my own accord,
extremely interested in
extremely interested, and their whole response system, and how do you even go into that and fix it? You know, and that's a very broad term. There's no just fixing it.
Right.
How do you do that? And at that time, I was also trying to figure out where was I going in life. And I still remember it was just one evening, I'm on the computer and I come across FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency that manages federal disasters at a federal level, had a higher education page. This is where you can get degrees in emergency management. And I asked the question you asked me, what's emergency management? I had no idea. But you can get a degree in it, and I was looking for a degree. You could get a master's degree in it. I'm like, wow.
But you're in nursing, which I feel like is a pretty stable.
It is. It's a stable
line of work.
It is. It just, something didn't feel right for long term. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed nursing, but something didn't feel like right that it was going to be a long term career. It was just something I just didn't feel like I was going to be doing that in 20, 30 years. See myself doing it.
And then, and so you went from like, this was not even on your radar to 9/11 just coming out of nowhere. And then
something tripped.
I got to do something.
I want to be a part of something.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of something. I enjoy the service arena. I mean, I went into nursing. I enjoy the service.
Wow, that's crazy.
But emergency management was service on a much larger scale, a much broader scale. And so I found this higher education page. I found out you could get a degree in emergency management. I had no idea what emergency management was. So I was living in Springfield, Missouri at the time. So I called the local. So I looked it up and I found out Springfield has a local emergency management director. I'm like, wow, I didn't even know what this is. So I called the guy.
Do most places not?
Well, they do. I didn't know they existed. But this is back in 2001.
Yeah.
And so I called the guy. I'm like, my first question to him was like, so what do you do all day? That was exactly was my question.
You
I just called him.
Called him on
I said, I'm so-and-so. I'm looking to go into this degree program. What do you do all day? And he talked to me for 2 hours. We were on that
phone call
for 2 hours, and he unloaded everything.
You're just a random guy.
Just a random guy. I said, so what do you do? And that's what he told me. And ironically, in 2006, I ended up taking his job when he retired.
No way.
He retired in 2006, and he recommended me, because at that time I started to get my degree. I started to volunteer for him in his office just to learn it. I got engaged with everything going on, and he recommended me to.
You volunteered. You did like internship work while you were nursing?
While I was nursing and while I was going to school. Then I went and did several hours, 10, 15 hours a week there doing. I went to them and I said, give me a project. So they gave me projects, and I just started working on projects to learn what they did. And it didn't really apply to my degree. It was more for my own self-interest to learn what in the world am I getting into. And so I was doing that. I was doing the degree program, and I was because I had 3 kids at this time. So, and my wife was a full-time stay-home mom. So I was the only income. So I worked full-time, and I worked nights. So there's some flexibility there. So I had the days to either choose to sleep or not to sleep and do other things.
That was my next question is when do you sleep?
It got so bad at one point. I was taking a test and I fell asleep during the test. I'm like, okay, this is getting extreme. I need to back off somehow. But then Hurricane Katrina happened. And
when did that was 05?
05.
Okay, yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, hey, I need to be a part of something. This is what I wanted to do. I need to be a part of something. So I applied and got hired on with FEMA as a recovery planner.
And you were just doing volunteer work up until that point.
Right.
Okay.
And so FEMA hired me, and I went down to Katrina for 6 weeks. And while I was in Katrina, the local emergency management director called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to retire. If you're interested, I'll recommend you to fill my spot while I'm at Katrina."
Okay.
And I said, "Amen, I'll take it."
So I just have so many questions about that. So what from that's 4 years from 9/11 to Hurricane Katrina, and emergency preparedness is on your map now.
It's on my map. So I had to finish I was in the middle of my bachelor's when 9/11. So I finished my bachelor's in 2002, and I immediately went into my master's of emergency management in 2002. And I did that part-time till 2006.
So was it like an online course? Or?
So ish. So it wasn't really online back then. I mean, online was a thing, but online courses were not a thing. I mean, this is 2002 and 3. So Oklahoma State University they were the first and only master's program in emergency management at that time. And now there's dozens. So they had what they called a distant program. So I would get a bunch of I would order the books, read the books, do all this pre-work, and then I went on campus for 1 week at a time.
It was Oklahoma, you said?
Mm-hmm. In Stillwater, Oklahoma.
So you'd travel to Oklahoma.
So I would travel to Oklahoma, and I would be there from Sunday through Saturday for a class or two. And I did that several times a year. And so the class was pre-work, 1 week on campus, and then post-work.
Give me some examples of like what you learn in that class.
So it's
like an exam what are you being tested on?
At the time, and now it's becoming more, emergency management at the time was not a truly defined profession. It's kind of had to build itself as a profession. But at the time, it was really public policy administration. How do you manage a government department with an emphasis in disasters, I guess you could say. So we talked about, my very first class was public policy analysis. So it really wasn't even emergency management related at first.
Public policy analysis.
So I'd have to take policies that was written for public endeavors and
you just have to know them.
So my very first report, I tell my kids always complain about how they have to write these 2 or 3 page reports. I'm like, well, my first report, the parameters he set was it had to be a minimum of 30 pages, single space, 9 font.
Oh my gosh.
And I have to analyze a policy, and there was a very specific breakdown of how you go through the different mechanics of it. And it was that was my very first class. That was my very first day of class.
No
he
way.
rolls this out.
No
and I'm
way.
like, I was questioning what I got myself into.
Day one. They're asking you to make a 30-page
single space 9 font report on a public policy that you have to go find and analyze. And
so you choose the policy and you just
but the whole class, of course, walks you through to how to do that. And so that was the class.
That is wild.
And then it's there's a lot of
I feel like the policy itself would be 30 pages, and then you. What is analyzing a policy even?
Effectiveness. What problem were you addressing? How was the policy designed? And then measuring how do you measure the effectiveness of it? What were consequences that were not anticipated or positive? I mean, just really taking it from cradle to grave of, was this a good idea? What were you fixing? Okay. Was it a good idea, and did it fix it?
So you take a policy and you basically form an opinion and report on
and try to, as scientifically as you can, defend it or it's not really a debate, but
yeah, support it or
not.
Wow. Okay. So you go ahead.
That was a lot of the public policy, just administration. And then there was emergency management. So then, there's a whole class on terrorism, trying to understand terrorism at the time. 9/11, was or a few years old at that time.
That's stuff that you studied. You have a degree in that field of study.
Yeah, and it's a master's degree in emergency management. And they look at terrorism. I mean, at the time, we were looking at, what was homegrown terrorism versus international terrorism and sleeper cells and all the, just kind of at the time, what they understood and knew terrorism to be. It was a bit, after 9/11, there's a lot of money rolled out in the response and the understanding and the intelligence of it. And we were just consumers of trying to learn everything that was going on.
So, and because I feel like most people would hear emergency management and think like you're the guy that has to know what to do when something happens. But I'm surprised to hear that you're also somebody that has to know the whys of what happened. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's not far from the truth. So terrorism is one part of what emergency management. We try to look at all hazards. What is everything that could possibly happen, and we try to understand the why, because the majority of 90% of our job is before it happens. We don't spend the majority of our time in the response and recovery. Well, hopefully we don't. So if we understand the why, then hopefully you can mitigate, you can prevent, you can prepare, you can train, you can exercise, you can plan. If you understand the why, then hopefully you can be in a better situation for the response.
Be prepared, obviously.
So when it does happen, you're not. So the goal I have in life, in my profession, is to never be surprised. I should never be surprised if something happens, because I should have anticipated it, planned for it, trained on it, and exercised and been ready for it.
So
that's the goal.
How likely are you to express your views on 9/11?
If you're enjoying the Moxie-Moron Show, please like the video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, or leave a rating and review on your favorite podcasting platform and share the show with someone. Also, if you really want to support the show and get this thing off the ground, consider signing up for my Patreon, where you can receive early access to episodes, exclusive episodes with my family and close friends, and more exclusive perks. If you're listening to this, you're helping make my dream a reality. So thank you.
Views as far as...
So like, I mean, this, you'll laugh at this. There's a 4-hour video on YouTube called like the 9/11 iceberg, where it just goes over. It's not even. There's great conspiracies surrounding 9/11, right? And this video, I wouldn't even necessarily. In fact, the video seemed to, the creator of it seemed to have made it trying to debunk a lot of conspiracies. But that being said, the video is just every aspect that you could possibly correlate to 9/11. Just every, and it just progressively gets weirder and weirder, whether it just be coincidences or just the facts. I mean, and it wasn't like this is a conspiracy. This is what is being hid. This is just what happened, but it's like everything. And I thought it was interesting.
That is. See, and before I got into university, I did this at the local government. I mean, there are obviously disasters and crises and emergencies happen, and there's political reason, or there are political perspectives or opinions about it. Our goal is to stay
neutral.
Stay neutral. It happened. Why it happened, we try to understand to prevent it. But in the end, I just try to, what you just described is what my goal is. What are the facts? What do we know? How can we either stop this or better prepare and respond?
Does your professional status, would that be affected if you gave your personal opinion on based on that? What you think? I mean,
would it affect me as far as my work?
I mean, yeah. If I asked you about 9/11, what do you think as far as the conspiracy? I mean, is there any? First of all, is that even a question that you are interested in? And if it is, are you comfortable? I mean, I don't even know. It's hard to gauge with people, you know, like
Right.
I have nothing to lose. So I love getting
Yes.
into it, talking about it. And so I'm curious.
I'm very interested. Yes. Unfortunately, I don't know enough. I haven't gone down that road enough to know the facts and to know the conspiracies. I don't know. I'd have to study. I'd have to know a little bit more before I could formulate a fair opinion. I haven't gone down the road enough to really say what I would
About 9/11 specifically. Okay. Have there been any emergencies that you did kind of raise your eyebrows at? Have you ever found anything in your job where you're like, this is weird? I mean, Hurricane Katrina, you know, that's a natural disaster.
That's a natural disaster. But yeah, I've heard of conspiracies that I think are weird. I've heard of conspiracies that there are some thoughts out there that hurricanes are man-made or man-triggered. And I think that's, I don't know if I would agree with that. I mean, just the sheer volume and what it would take and the scale of that, I don't know that we have the ability to do that. Maybe I'm too small-minded, but for us to create weather disasters, to me, is a struggle to get on board with. That's just, the world's changing. Call it climate change, call it whatever you want to call it. They're in our what we see or what we believe is disasters are happening more frequently, and the argument is that they're more seen and more recorded. Well, after decades of having pretty good observations, there's just the billion and billion dollar disasters that happen on a regular basis, and they're becoming to such a scale and magnitude that we can't ignore them. We have to address.
Wait, are you saying there's more that are happening? Is that what you just said?
More disasters at a larger scale or magnitude.
Like just worldwide, significantly, there are more natural disasters.
Yes. What's that? The question that always comes out was, well, where do you draw the line and how do you define a disaster?
Okay,
Is that high wind event a disaster compared to an EF5 tornado? That obviously is.
Right.
You know, so how do you define that? So, you know, there's a lot of debate. Well, where do you draw the line? How do you define that? But in our world of emergency management, we feel very busy because there's a lot going on a constant basis.
Have you run into any issues from conspiracy theorists? Like, does anybody give your department a hard time, or
not really? Because
is it spoken of among your colleagues, like people you work with? Do they care? I mean,
no, not really. Because whatever the origin, it's happening. Yeah. And our job is to help address it.
Is to deal
with it. Whatever the origin is, conspiracy or not, doesn't change my job. I'm still, the tornado's coming or the tornado came. I have to do my job to help respond to that.
I think people will be happy to hear that. You know,
so, no, in the insider ball, when I was at the local government, and no, we wanted to do the right thing for the right reason for the people we were responsible for, and that we just wanted to take care of the problem. We wanted to prevent the problem from happening. If it did, we wanted to get it back to normal as quickly as possible.
Okay, so you got you took that guy, you replaced that guy. So you worked. That was a federal position?
That was not a federal position. I was in a federal position temporarily. I worked for FEMA.
Oh, when you went to Hurricane Katrina.
When I went to Hurricane Katrina, I was in a federal position. And then that guy called me while I was working in that federal position and said, "Hey, I'm retiring. If you're interested, I would recommend you for my job for those that."
So what does that look like? You have Hurricane Katrina happens. Did somebody reach out to you, or did you reach out to somebody?
For Katrina, I reached out to somebody. I reached out to FEMA and said, I want to help. I want to help. I did that. But then when I came back and took on the local role. So from an emergency management perspective, very simplistically, there's 3 levels: the local, state, and federal level. We always say all disasters start local, all disasters end local. Ultimately, it's the local responsibility. We own it. We're responsible for it. We're going to fix it. But when it gets to the point it's the magnitude is so much that we don't have the money, the resource to do it. The state steps in. When they say they can't handle it, it's too much, then the federal comes in. So we escalate as needed. Joplin, I was in Joplin, tornado. So that was an immediate escalation because of the magnitude and the size.
Wow. So,
but the majority of our disasters are local. We don't request state and federal assets or support because we can handle the majority of them locally.
Mm-hmm. So what do they tell you when they're going to give you this position for Hurricane Katrina? They're like, you're going to stay out here. You had to go to Florida?
I went to Mississippi.
Okay, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you're going to stay here indefinitely?
No, it was a specific team. It was a recovery team. So I was on a team of like 34 people, 30 something. And our job, we were assigned to help the 5 counties in Mississippi recover from Katrina. And I was the only one with an emergency management degree, or I was still working on it. And the others were planners, professionals of other sorts. And we came all together. And so I connected with the local emergency manager for all 5 of those counties. And then with the team, we organized, how do we help you rebuild your community? So with the emergency manager, the local leaders, the commissioners, the mayors, what does your new community look like? And so we write a long-term recovery plan that shapes the way they want to rebuild. And then you connect that with funds that are available and community support and input. And there's the whole process to try to rebuild in the right way, a stronger way, more resilient way, with money that might be available.
Do you find that so let's say you write up this long-term plan and you're like, this is how we're going to recover from this disaster. This is how we're going to make our comeback. And then before that really plays out, another disaster comes in and wrecks everything. And then do you run into that problem?
Yes, it's happened. It's happened here in Missouri, in Southwest. It happened with tornadoes. We had one person had a debris pile from 3 different tornadoes was in their yard because they got hit 3 different times over a period of a few months.
Oh my gosh!
And so this was this tornado, and they had three different debris piles, and so it's not common, but it does happen. I mean, but it's not. Well, let me take that back. It's not uncommon. Like out west, you'll see wildfires, and it destroys the terrain, and then flooding comes. And now because of the wildfires and the vegetation gone, now they have massive flash flooding. And so some disasters, because of them, cause other disasters to happen sooner down the road.
That's crazy. That's something I would have never even thought of. So you're in Katrina. How long did you stay there?
6 weeks.
It was just 6 weeks.
It was a short stint, but yeah.
So you go to Mississippi to meet with the local emergency preparedness people, and that's what you're doing for 6 weeks is just creating a plan. I mean, is that just like sitting in meetings all day, or are you going around to places and
all the above? It's sitting in meetings, it's helping them design and identify what are their needs, what happens, what's the impact, and what's the new normal, what does their new community look like, and then it's community input. I mean, it's just not a few people deciding this, and then so it's how do we get the community input from surveys, public meetings. We put up not billboards, but poster signs and projects, and people would come give thoughts and opinions from the community. What do they like? What do they don't like? Do we want to rebuild this as it was? Do we want to rebuild this different? Is this going to be a new commercial location? Do we want to make, instead of a 50,000 gallon water tower, and maybe now's the opportunity, we'll make it 100,000 gallons. They're just different opportunities. As bad as disasters are, there is a silver lining, if you will, sometimes to rebuilding in a way that's methodical and smart, and what we like to say, hopefully resilient, more resilient. And so if the hurricane does come again, it doesn't hurt as bad the second time.
Oh, that's awesome. So in that 6 weeks, you get a call from your guy in Springfield.
Yes.
Did you know that was going to happen?
No. I knew. I mean, at some point,
that seems like a kind of a crazy small window.
It is. At some point, I'd gotten, because I was volunteering for him in his office. He had a few staff members. I got to know them well, and he had talked about someday retiring, but I had no idea when.
When did you stop nursing?
So I stopped nursing in 2005. And did Hurricane Katrina, and then I came back and started that.
So Hurricane Katrina happened, and you were like, nursing's done. That's what ended your nursing career.
Pretty much, yes. So there was a small transition. I ended nursing, and I was doing contract work with small communities of doing emergency. I was writing plans for some. I was trying to find more.
So you were making money.
I was making other
by
money
now
because of my involvement with Springfield and some of the other work that needed to be done, I was able to find contract work with writing plans. And so I was doing that, and I was doing nursing. I was doing I was just balancing a lot of different things. Katrina happened, and I stopped everything and went to Katrina. And then I came back, I started at Springfield.
Wow. Okay. So
there's a little bit of a transition there, but that's pretty much the flow.
So now you're in Springfield. You didn't live were you living in Springfield?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where I lived.
Okay.
That's where I was actually born and raised, in that area. So I know the area well.
Yeah, you mentioned that yesterday. So where do you go from here?
So I started in May of 2006 at Springfield, and small staff. There was 4 of us at the time. And we started to do emergency management. I mean, not starting. I mean, they had been doing emergency management for a while. But what changed the landscape of my career, one of those, what I would call a career-changing moment, was January 2007. So I'd been on the job for 7 months. We had a devastating ice storm. I mean, it rained ice for 64 hours of just constant ice. We got 1.5 inches to 2 inches of just solid ice.
Holy moly.
And it covered 40 counties, including us. And it knocked, and then after the ice storm came through, then the temperatures plummeted. So we have no power, no transportation, and freezing cold temperatures and I'm responsible for the community of 200,000 people to respond and recover from this. And that was a career. It changed my trajectory of everything I want. That just gave me the drive and the commitment to, I'm going to make this. I'm going to be good at this. And I don't know if I did good at the time, but I was committed to be the best I could.
This was 7 months after you got that job,
and it was overload. I mean, it came on Friday, and so my wife loves to tell the story. I knew it was coming. That morning, we were talking to the National Weather Service. They said, "Yeah, we think it's coming." And then a couple hours later, they said, "No, it's really coming. We're issuing an ice storm warning." And then so Friday night, I'm out doing some church work, and the power goes out. And so I go home. I'm like, "Well, I'm going to go to the office for a little bit. I'll be back." I was gone. I didn't come back till Tuesday night. I left Friday night. I came back on Tuesday night.
You're kidding.
For a quick shower, and then I was gone for another 2 weeks. I mean, I just lived at the office. It was just, the entire community was without power. We ended up cleaning up like 2 million cubic yards of debris, of vegetation. I mean, you couldn't stretch your arms out without hitting tree limbs that just covered the entire landscape. There were tree limbs and trees iced everywhere. The power lines were down, all entangled. The roads were covered in ice.
Wait, so the ice storm came Friday night?
Yes.
And you were just like, it hadn't hit, and you were like, I'm just going to go to the office.
Well, it was hitting. It was just now coming, and we had lost power at the house, and I knew it was coming. I'm like, okay, it's really happening. I'm like, I'm going to go into that office, and then when I went into the office, the fire department, the fire chief calls me and says, we can't keep up with calls because there's just fire calls everywhere from all the power lines that were going out. He goes, we've got to activate the command center. So, and that's what emergency management's responsible for.
Activate. That sounds like a line out of a movie.
Yeah.
We got to activate the command center.
Well, it's technically the emergency operations center. The EOC is what we call it, but most people refer to it as the command center. But so we activated, and we had,
what does that mean?
That means that anyone and everyone that's going to help respond to the disaster all meet in a central place, and we work as a response team. I mean, these are like directors, mid-level managers.
Is that countywide or
countywide, city and countywide?
Okay.
So I had fire chiefs, police chiefs, public works directors, the media. I had everybody there. The representatives from the mayor's office, the county commissioner's office, building inspector, everybody. We had a room of about 30 people for a couple of weeks. And my emergency management job is to manage that room, to coordinate that room, to make sure that everybody, what are our needs, what do we have, what resources do we have, and then put them together.
Wow.
And it was overwhelming. I was young, I was probably dumb, and I learned a lot.
So how long did that take you to, like, before, like, when that started to when you were like, the ice storm is finished?
The response was about 2 weeks. We were finally able to, because we had to activate shelters. We activated shelters all over the county because people they were colder in their homes. And so we had to find places that had power or where we could get generators. And so we set up a dozen shelters, and we're sheltering people. And then when you shelter them, you got to feed them, you got to water them, you got to shelter. I mean, and then we had a lot of medical people with medical challenges, people on dialysis or oxygen or all these medical needs that they need power to survive. So we set up the health department was running the medical shelter for us, and
you were the guy. You were in charge of everything.
I was in charge. And
how old were you?
I was 2007, and I was born in 76. So 24, 31.
Oh my gosh.
And so the mistake I did make, a big mistake. So nursing homes all losing power. And so nursing home calls the EOC and says, we don't have power. And the power company at the time says we won't have power.
That's not Ameren?
No, Ameren's not down there. Down there, it's the city actually owns the power company, city utilities. And they were in our EOC, and they said, yeah, we got power out all over the place. So I make the mistake. I make the call. Bad decision. We're gonna relocate this nursing home. So I found a large gymnasium, and we put in all the resources to move all the residents, their beds, the medications, the personnel. We moved an entire nursing home across town to a whole nother building with a generator.
Oh my gosh!
And it took us a lot of resources to do it.
I feel like that's like the toughest type of.
We did it.
People to move.
It wasn't easy. A lot of medical support was needed to do that. Well, what happens after that? I get a call. Number 2 nursing home. We don't have power. Number 3 nursing home. We don't have power. Number 4. I mean, all of a sudden now all these nursing homes saying we don't, I said, well, I can't move another one. I shouldn't have moved the first one. I can't move another one. So we just reverse engineered it. And we just started finding generators, and we just started placing generators at nursing homes. But you just can't plug and play a generator. So then I had to find electricians to go set up the generator for the nursing homes, and it was done. There was dozens of them all over the place. And you think about it, and that's our job. To find an ice storm is not a surprise. Ice storms are a risk. What's surprising, what we've got to think about is what are the cascading impacts? What happens in an ice storm? What are things I need to worry about? One thing we worried about, you can't pump gas. There's no electricity. So we can't get gas out of the tanks. Well, so we try to get generators.
You can't go to a gas station and get gas.
There's no power. And well, then what I found out was the main fuel supplier that was fueling the gas stations, they were out of power. And so even if I got power back to the gas station, they're going to run out of gas because the ones that supply the gas stations had no power. So we had to back up and try to get power. So we got power to the main fuel supply source. Well, when I get power back to them, the guy calls me and says, well, now I need internet because everything is controlled remotely. So then we go and get remote, and this is just so we can put gas at the gas station, and then you got to have fuel to get or power to get fuel out of the gas station.
Yeah,
I mean, these are the little things that you have to. Yeah, I mean, animals. People love their animals, and they're not going to go to a shelter without their animals. Well, we don't. We don't have.
You can't have a zoo.
We can't have a zoo at a shelter.
Yeah.
So now we're juggling. How do you set up animal shelters? You know, all these little things that you have.
That's
that
so true.
They have to organize from a community response perspective.
That is crazy. And so how much? Give me a rough percentage of how many things came up that you were like, I have not even.
Oh, a lot.
This
Dozens.
never would have crossed my mind, and I've got to figure out how to fix it.
I got to figure out how to fix it. I was in charge, but I mean, it was a team. It truly was a team effort. There's a lot of people there. So when those problems came up, I mean, I've got a room of 30 people. How do we fix this problem? And you get 30 people invested in making things right.
But it really is just a group of people figuring out how to
do this, how to fix these problems.
Wow.
And you know, and they work hard. I mean, they're 24/7. We ate there, we slept there. And I'm in a very old building that I had for an EOC. The National Guard, I had National Guardsmen there represented because we brought in National Guard to help us. I ran out of room where to sleep the National Guardsmen. So I put him in the elevator. I turned the elevator off, and that was his sleeping quarters.
You're kidding me.
Because I literally had no other floor space. So I put him in the elevator, and the National Guardsmen slept in the elevator. Because it was a tight quarter. I mean, this was the biggest response of that community in decades. And we got nailed with it.
Wow. So that was the game changer.
That was a game changer.
That was when you became a pro.
Well, that was when I was committed to become a pro. If I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it right.
Yeah.
I'm all in, and I want to be the subject matter expert of emergency management. Was my mindset at the time, and I was going to do everything I could to make sure that if that happened again, I was better prepared.
That's so cool. So then that happens, and then
things just start happening. We had more ice. We had another ice storm the next month, not as big, but we had another ice storm. And then we have constant flooding. Then
there's enough emergencies going on for you to just have constant work.
There's constant either emergencies going on or enough lessons learned or identify problems that you're trying to fix to make them better before the next one happens. And there's just constant work going on with that because we're trying to be very methodical about this because if emergency doesn't happen, what we do ourselves is we create our own emergencies and we call them exercises. We'll call them and we'll conduct several exercises a year if something isn't happening or maybe we want to do another ice storm. Maybe we haven't had a tornado and we need to test. How do we respond? Do we have everything in place for a tornado? So we spend a lot of time creating a realistic scenario that tests the community system of responding to tornado. Airports are required to have a full-scale exercise every 3 years of a plane crash. So every 3 years we were at the airport. I mean, to do a full-scale exercise, it takes 6 months of intense planning to do it right. I mean, if you roll because you got all the role playing, everything you want done, all the full response. If you want it done right, you really plan it well, and then it makes it a reality scenario that people can learn from.
What classifies an emergency that you would be put on from just like any other type of accident? Like, because you're not going to be on the scene of a car wreck.
No.
But if there's like a 50 car pile up that, yes. So how do you determine?
That's a great question. So what we say is if it's outside the normal daily emergency, if it escalates beyond what a department normally handles, if it's going to require multiple departments to do something that they normally don't get involved with, then we come into play.
So as soon as departments start kind of crossing over and getting each other involved, then you got to be there to...
Maybe one department can work with another one. That's easy. Fire, police work together all the time. That's easy. But when it starts getting, we need public works, or maybe public health is involved, or, the media wants, news stories on this. All that starts coming together. Then we activate the Emergency Operations Center and organize all of that. And there's a very fine-tuned structure of how to do that. It's a national-wide system and structure. We learn it, we adopt it, we follow it.
So did you have any jobs in between Springfield and where you are now?
I won't say I had other jobs, but I had other adventures. So in addition to working for the Springfield, Greene County, then Missouri as a whole organized response teams. So what we would do is we'd bring people that had studied the system, knew how to respond to disasters, and let's say something happens in central Missouri and they are overwhelmed, they don't have people to help respond, a deployable team would go help them. That's how I went to Joplin. Joplin called me and said, we're overwhelmed, and so our team goes and helps the Joplin leaders run their EOC because they only have a staff of 1 or 2 and it's just too much.
And does Springfield pay for that?
Springfield supports it. They don't pay for it.
Do they pay for you to go do that, or is Joplin paying you at that point?
That's a great question. That's a case by case basis. So if for a large scale incident like that, typically then Joplin did pay for us to do that, and then FEMA would reimburse Joplin for that expense because that's a disaster eligible expense, I guess you could say. For smaller disasters,
oh really?
Maybe not so much. Then Springfield just supports the salary time for you to go and help.
So if the disaster is like big enough, then the government will reimburse.
The government would reimburse the local for disaster eligible expenses, which having a support team come in would be eligible for.
Okay,
that.
yeah,
so they can help with that.
Wow. Is there, let's see, what, well, I guess I guess we didn't get to all of your quote unquote adventures. So
the big adventure was this response team. So I organized, they said, hey, here's a concept. I said, I think it's a great concept. So from a region-wide basis, like 18 different counties, I asked who wants to be part of this concept. And we built a team of like 50 or 60 people. And we organized ourselves into different positions and responsibilities. And we went to many different disasters. We went to central Missouri for a flood, central Missouri for an ice storm. We went up to northern Missouri for a snowstorm. We went to Joplin for a tornado. We even went to Hurricane Sandy in New York on Long Island.
Oh, wow.
Helped the Long Island Emergency Operations Center respond to Hurricane Sandy. So we traveled as a response team when requested. And that's where I gained a lot of additional experience in response.
I remember you mentioning that COVID affected you. Is that
COVID was a big deal
for you?
For me, for emergency management, yes.
Talk about that.
So at the time, I had moved up to St. Louis, and I was up with Washington University, and we crossed that threshold, like you asked. At what level do you get involved? Does emergency management get involved? Well, we crossed that threshold. I mean, COVID obviously was a big deal, and so it involved a lot. And so from my responsibilities at the university is we had to care for the university operations and the students and the faculty, and how do we you go into alternate operations with how do you maintain class, how do you maintain research, how do you maintain the clinics. Those are our key mission areas. And so the policies, the policy makers would decide, they had a lot of subject matter experts from infectious disease to whatever needed to be done. And when they kind of found what they thought was the best route to go, it was our job to execute or implement those policies. So whatever it may be to when the students left on spring break for COVID, it was decided they're not coming back. That's at the height of COVID. So
wow.
So how everything that changes, how do we maintain university operations? Students are coming back. How do they get their stuff? How do we maintain classes? Everything that goes on was coordinated from an emergency operation center, and we're responsible to manage that.
So yeah, I feel like when people hear emergency preparedness, that that the natural disasters and even the terror, like destruction is what comes to mind. And I feel like COVID was like a very different kind of
very different.
Was that like the first type of thing like that you had to?
Very much so. It was the first type for many within the, yes, for that type of health level emergency, COVID won the prize.
So how did you get to Wash U?
So this is a funny story. So when I was at Springfield, I was able to grow my department. I was able to add more staff. And so I added on a staff member and I hired him to run my training and exercise program. So we have a person in the office dedicated to train all the responders of any type of major disaster and then create scenarios, build exercises to test them on that. So I hired this young guy. He did great. He took that to the next level, built a solid program, and he was a young, ambitious, up and coming leader in the world of emergency management. Well, in his position, he wanted to do more after a few years because he was really good at what he did. Well, he went and got hired on with Washington University to be their emergency manager for the med school. About a year later, he recommended for me to apply for a job that he was opening up to come up and work at Washington University. He was building a new program there. I'd been at Springfield for about 10 years. Thought this would be a good growth opportunity. So the guy that worked for me, I now work for him. We flipped roles.
That's funny.
And he's still my boss today, and we continue to build the program and work well together.
Yeah. And you I mean you stay busy even when there's not necessarily
I do. I'm
a disaster.
Contrary to my wife's beliefs, I do stay busy. But it's a different. You
stay at the office anyway.
Yeah, that's true. But within our world of the university world, there's just we've got our own little world of about 45,000 people that we have to keep prepared and protected from large scale disasters. And so the main mission areas, it's clinics, it's research, it's academics, and we take every precaution possible to make sure those operations are not interrupted.
So that's kind of what I want to kind of transition over to the present. And my first question about that is like, are there any what are some of like the either, I don't know if misconceptions is the right word, or just things that people are not aware of, that just general public, what are the things that you're like, I wish more people understood this or either remembered this or did this to prepare? Or we work really close with the American Red Cross, and in Joplin, Red Cross obviously was there in full force, and they do a lot of case management. Case management being helping the individuals get back to their homes. And one of the misconceptions is if FEMA comes, FEMA will put you back in your home. That is so far from the truth. That is not there's not federal funds to put people back in their homes. That all has to be done through insurance and other means. FEMA will take care of the immediate needs and help the communities, and there is some individual assistance, but it's very, very little. It's very small. So really,
the case management is where Red Cross and other nonprofits and faith-based organizations really step in. We could not do disaster response without nonprofits and faith-based organizations. They fill in the gaps that have to be there. Long story to my point is, one of the cases that American Red Cross was working, the phrase that stuck to me is, she said, this is the lady that lost everything in the Joplin tornado. I never thought it would happen to me. That was, and the way she said it, how it impacted her, has stuck with me ever since 2011. I never thought it would happen to me. The chances of your home getting hit by an EF5 tornado is not great. It's a small chance.
It's low.
It's low. But if you are prepared, the chances of you getting hit by something else that will surprise you, something that you're not prepared for, is high. I won't say, and it's hard to quantify that. I don't know what that is.
Say that again.
So for you to be impacted by something
That you're not prepared
that you're not prepared for is possible, and I would say it's a great possibility for any of us. Why not make preparedness just a basic part of your lifestyle? It doesn't have to be your focus in life, but just to do basic preparedness would help mitigate and prevent long-term problems that happen afterwards.
And what's basic?
Basic. So Hurricane Katrina, one of the big problems was they lost everything. So they had no proof that they even owned the plot of land.
Oh no.
They didn't even have proof that was their land. and
crazy.
And the land markers were gone, so they had to research. They didn't have proof of where their boundaries were. It was all wiped out. It was all gone. Just a very simple one is duplication of important documents. Will save headaches and heartache for months afterwards.
Where do you keep them in a bank, or
keep them that was the tradition, that was in the past, but now electronically, however you feel safe with that, but electronically it could be stored in the cloud or wherever you feel safe, or a fireproof box, safe box. I mean, maybe a hurricane would take the firebox away, but for most instances, you can lock it in some type of safe or firebox that would help. It didn't have to be a large. I mean, even a disaster. I mean, your question of when did things get bad? If your house burnt down, emergency management's not coming in, but that's a disaster to you. That's a big problem for you.
Yeah,
not my problem, and I'm not gonna respond to it. But your life just got changed forever. And so it doesn't even have to be the large scale big disasters. It could be even small things that really affect you. And we've talked about this. It's not even emergency management, but even unexpected death within the family. All these kind of things are there's just little things that take a little bit of time that can really help prevent headache and heartache afterwards.
What are some other things? These are things. It's like that you feel, in your opinion, reasonably everybody could and should have.
Communications. How are you going to communicate?
Are you a ham radio guy?
I do have my ham radio license. To say I'm a ham radio guy would be a stretch because I don't play or talk on the radios ever.
Is that the way to go though? It
is a safe alternative. Where I fail, and I'll take the personal responsibility. I've got the license. I could make it work, but I don't practice enough to do it. Where I live at, I live down in a hole. And so I can't even hit a repeater with my, I'd have to get a much bigger radio system set up. But for the most part, they're alternate communication. And I don't mean ham radio. I mean, ham radio is important. Don't get me wrong about that. But just knowing how would you communicate or find your family members if you can't communicate. If all of a sudden you got cut off from them, let's say in Missouri, we're at risk for the New Madrid earthquake. We get cut off. No cell infrastructure is impacted. You don't know where your family is. How do you communicate? How do you find them?
How do you communicate?
So we have a couple options. We have within my family plan, we have pre-designated locations that if there's complete loss of communications, and if we can't come home, we have places around our community and our home where we know we're going to meet up at.
If I quizzed your kids, would they ace
my
it?
wife would. My kids wouldn't. My older kids did know. My wife would know. We also have in our family, we have a secret word, and I can't tell you the word because it's secret. If I tell you this word, if we're out in public or something, I feel like something bad is going to happen. If I say our family pass code word, that means it's serious, no questions asked. You do what you're told, and we just move on. And that's common. That was been recommended. If you're out in a public space and there's this bad actor or something going on that has just put you and your family in a bad position. Yeah. We got to move. And so we have our plan and our way of how we're going to go. It used to be, even before cell phones, local phone numbers got congested. If something happens and I want to call you, it's very unlikely that I can do an outbound call and you can take in a call, because the capacity to take in phone calls is quickly overwhelmed. And everybody's making phone calls, but you could make a call out of state a lot quicker, easier. You can call out of state someone that's not affected by the disaster, as opposed to someone affected by a disaster.
I see.
So we all have I have a sister in Arizona. That's our common call. If we can't connect, call Aunt Marcia. And that's how we get a hold, and that's how we try to make a connection outside of another way if we can't communicate within the disaster zone.
Okay. So communication plans.
Communication plans. Basic food and water. I mean, that's hard for people to get their minds around, but just those immediate.
Church says 72 hours. Is that?
That's a gold standard. At least get by 72 hours. I mean, hurricanes are bad. In the Missouri area, we've never really experienced anything of that scale, maybe the ice storm, but an earthquake would do it for us. An earthquake it'd be a bad day, and it would be 72 hours before I think basic resources got in here.
How much, and this might be going back to, might be rewinding a little bit, but how important, I mean, really, is like just the common folk volunteer work in situations like that? Because you mentioned faith-based, couldn't do it without the faith-based and nonprofit organizations. Financially, is what you kind of implied there, that they fill in the gaps financially. They also, they have a bunch of humanitarian aid things, volunteer opportunities. I mean, how much of a difference would it get done without?
No, huge. Volunteers are critical in disaster. What we say in emergency management is they're important, but they're very important to be organized and managed. We don't want a lot of what we call unaffiliated volunteers just falling in on a community and just going rogue on doing something. And so what we organize from a community perspective is a volunteer management plan. How do we manage and organize volunteers? And we try to do that through affiliations. The goal or the hope is already be affiliated with an organization, be with a church, be with Red Cross, be with Salvation, whoever it may be, AmeriCorps. And we ideally...
So you want to help, like if somebody that is just sitting on their couch, they see a disaster occur, best way to get involved with you want to help. Best way to do it is to find an organization. Yes, that
100%. That's the way we would, because then there's some, I won't say accountability, but there's some organization to it. And so if you come to me and say I want to help, I've got to find a job for you times 10,000 people. But if an organization comes to me and says, I've got 150, they're skilled or trained in XYZ, or maybe not at all, but they're willing to work, then I can organize that.
Way easier to assign that.
Way easier to assign and put them to work.
Have there been projects or disasters, whatever, that you felt like you didn't have enough volunteer work for, or other ones where you felt like you had an extraordinary amount and it made a significant difference for you? Or is it usually just like, this is the volunteer work is relatively the same every time?
No, it matters. It matters how much publicity it gets, is how many volunteers come to play. If it really hits at people's heartstrings and they see it, a volunteer, Joplin, overloaded with volunteers. They came from coast to coast, all over the country.
Really?
They flooded it into Joplin.
And that and you felt that.
We felt that because we got the calls at the EOC. We would get calls and saying, I've got a bus load of one was high school college kids. I've got a bus load of college kids. We'll be there in a day. What do you want us to do? And so we there's some organization to that. But that was the good thing, is when they call us. But the majority, they just show up, and there's just it's just scattered, and it's really unsafe, and it's inefficient.
Really?
Because I mean, if we know have all these needs and we've got all these available resources, we can connect the dots. But when they just show up and they're just roaming around and looking, now if they're coming to help people that they know with their home or whatever, have at it, go for it. But if you're just coming blind, come in a way that helps us to be organized, then we can get things a lot done.
I see.
A lot better.
Even at an organization, like you'll have full on organization show up and just be like, we're here.
And what's interesting is, and this gets a little of the FEMA dynamics here, is for Joplin, for anything, if it's a federally declared disaster, FEMA will give the community credit for volunteer hours. So if something costs so much money, FEMA will reimburse 75% of that.
Okay.
The 25% can be matched with volunteer hours. So if I show you a record of 1,000 volunteer hours, that goes towards my 25% match, and that's less money that has to come out of my local budget. So if we can account for the volunteer hours, that it was done on public space and it was done related to the disaster and the time and who did it, then the local community can use that to help lessen the amount of money they have to spend in the recovery.
Wow.
And Joplin paid the majority of their, no, I can't say all of it. I don't know the details, but the finance officer told me a large majority of their cost requirements was paid for by the volunteer hours that were recorded.
Holy moly.
And we're talking tens of thousands of hours.
That is crazy.
But you have to pre-plan that. You have to, how do you organize that? AmeriCorps in St. Louis does a phenomenal, they do that. That's their niche. They will come and they'll organize the volunteers for you. They'll have all the sign-ups. They'll do the safety training to make sure everyone's safe. They have their proper protective equipment. They'll go in and give an assignment. They'll make an accountant, and then they'll turn that timesheet over to the locals, and they have an accounting of who did what, where, when, and it's organized. That's the ideal state. Mm-hmm. And there's plans to do that. It's just a matter of getting people to fall in line.
Do it, yeah.
Do it.
Wow, that's just that's a lot. I had a question that I was cooking up, and I can't. We went over kind of what basic instructions for people. Oh, I remember. What do you feel like looking forward that there will be? I mean, we kind of touched on the increase of natural disasters and things going on. Do you think that that the amount of emergencies, that these catastrophic things, even terrorist attacks and things, like, do you foresee an increase in those natural disasters? I mean, do people need to be more aware of emergency preparedness? I mean, or is it just kind of, has it relatively been the same throughout history, throughout the past, or do you feel like, I mean, you're probably pretty biased because it's what you do for work, but
I'm biased and I work with a lot of biased people.
We
would all say
sell me on emergency preparedness for the future. How do you, because you tell people all day long that it's important. How can you what can you show them to be like, this is probably gonna occur in the next X amount of years, or this is probably gonna happen, I mean, is there any of that, or do you feel any of that?
There are studies out there, and then you get the emotional case studies out there. I mean, you can feel, and you can get the individual that wish they would have been prepared, and you can see the numbers that are out there that says, yes, we feel like there's more out there. And I'd be willing to take to town that I promise you it's not going to get less. It's not going to get less. And if anything, it's going to, even if it stays at steady state, it's more than it should be. And it's just going to get more. And there's the amount of,
let me cut you off just for a second. it's because you responding to that it's not going to get less. Do you feel like it's not going to get less even for things that, not just natural disasters, things that we cause? Because I think that people are like really upset about things that we cause and do, emergencies that we cause, because they're preventable.
Right.
And you would think that with, as technology increases, as our education increases, as we get more people like yourself that are learning the history and the theory behind the whys and the hows of emergencies, and we're learning as a society, you would think that there would be a decrease in. Does that make sense?
It does.
Why is that not the case?
There was a book written many years ago. The name escapes me, but the theory, the idea behind it it's the Swiss cheese model.
The Swiss cheese model.
As if you take slices of Swiss cheese, oftentimes man-caused disasters happen because the holes of the Swiss cheese just happen to all line up at the wrong. There are so many preventable things that could have stopped it that just happen to all fall into place and cause things. Could we prevent those, or could those be lessened? Yes. Will they? I think in human nature, we'll always have holes in the Swiss cheese that will line up to cause problems.
That makes sense to me.
Look at things. I mean, in the past 10, 20 years, cybersecurity, we cause our own challenges. The value and the importance and how much we depend and love the internet and its value, with it comes risk. Every technology that we get comes risk. I was at a conference not long ago on nuclear power plants. They're not uncommon, but now they're in smaller size. You can Google and find they now have nuclear power plants that can be pulled with a tractor with a semi-trailer, and they will go and set on a military base and supply power for 10 years.
Nuclear power plants.
A mobile nuclear power plant, and it will the size of a semi-trailer, and it will supply it'll supply energy for 10 years. So that's a great technology, but risks come with it, obviously.
Sure.
So we're all constantly advancing and improving, but with these advancements comes risk. And we just have to be prepared of what those risks are and try to mitigate them every way we can. And it may be a bad actor that we have to prevent, or it may just be the Swiss cheese model lines up and 3 Mile Island back in the decades ago just happens, and we have to deal with it.
And do you and kind of back to something I asked earlier, you don't feel like anybody, like you've never been given a hard time from people for essentially not doing a good job, like either people telling you that you could have done this, or why aren't you doing this, or
oh yeah, happens all, and not so much why, I couldn't stop the tornado from happening,
right?
But there's always the response of why we gave priority to one area and not another, or what. A disaster, the very definition of a disaster in my mind is you've got more needs than you have resources. That's what causes disaster. We have more things out there than we have, and eventually the response is the resources overcome the needs. We now have more resources than the needs require, but that immediate state is there's more needs and resources. Well, there's complaints with, why did it take you so long to get control? Why did it take you so long to get the resources needed? And, we can criticize that all day long of, did you know it was coming? When you heard it was coming, were you prepared? Could you have done more? But in the immediate after disaster response, that's the mindset. 24 hours prior to the disaster, there's not an interest to invest money in something that may or may not happen.
Right.
You give me 24 hours beforehand, and I'll tell you why we didn't have that, because you didn't care. And I say that, that's probably too extreme, but there's not that interest until it happens.
Yeah.
And even when I was at Springfield, we gauged a major disaster. We had about 6 months. We estimated we were always getting requests for presentations. Hey, come talk on the ice storm. Hey, come talk on the tornado. What happened? How do we be better prepared? What can we do better? That would last about 6 months. We'd get those requests, and we filled them all, and we went to them all. But then after that, there was just the lack of interest. I mean, and it's not wrong. I say, I mean, people get back to life. I mean, it's not in front of them anymore, but it gets forgotten.
While we're on that subject, can you think of any time where you did screw up in a major way, where you were like, whoa?
I moved to a nursing home. I relocated a nursing home. That was a major.
That was a bad idea.
That was a bad idea. That was a bad idea. No major, because when to say I was in charge, or I was responsible, but all of those disasters, I'm never by myself. It's always a large team of people. And I'm not making
any executive decisions.
I'm not making executive decisions. I mean, it might come to, we got to make a decision, and are we going A or B route? And we just have to make it. And nothing's been extraordinarily so bad that we should have went the other way. But I mean, and within emergency management, you have to understand also, to say I'm in charge as emergency manager is a stretch, because I don't own the police department, the fire department. I don't own their resources. All I'm doing is bring them together to coordinate. Hey, chief, could you move this over here because they need this there? I mean, that's all I'm doing. I don't have the authority or the command power to order someone to do something.
Yeah.
All I'm bringing is together. And so ultimately in the end, it's that whole emergency operations center team that makes it happen. Emergency management just puts them in the room and organizes it and makes sure A is talking to B.
Yeah. So the last thing that I want to ask about is how does this fall with you? How does this play a part, or does it even at all play a part in your religious beliefs? Particularly, the signs of the times are kind of the big thing revolving around this. How do you feel about that? I mean, are we in it? Are the biblical prophecies that everybody's worrying about, are they really at our door, or do we not know? Or
I'll say I feel like I got job security. There's plenty to come. Personally, from a religious perspective,
you feel like you've got. I just want to clarify. You feel like you have job security in the context of
disasters are going to continue to happen
from a religious point of view.
If you're enjoying the Moxie-Moron Show, please like the video and subscribe to my YouTube channel, or leave a rating and review on your favorite podcasting platform and share the show with someone. Also, if you really want to support the show and get this thing off the ground, consider signing up for my Patreon, where you can receive early access to episodes, exclusive episodes with my family and close friends, and more exclusive perks. If you're listening to this, you're helping make my dream a reality. So thank you.
Yeah. I would say so. I would say we are in the end of times. I think from my religious leadership perspective, that's been clearly shared, that these are the end times, and that there is reason to be prepared, whatever that may be. I mean, physically prepared is my profession. There's the mental, emotional, spiritual preparedness that is no less important. I mean, those are all critical. Another important religious context that I would advocate for is preparedness directly correlates with self-reliance. We need to be. I want to always be self-reliant, for not only for the fact that I want to protect and take care of my family, but if I'm self-reliant and I have my needs taken care of, I'm more of an asset to go help somebody else. I've always asked my staff, make sure your family can be taken care of so you can come to work, because I do prioritize family first. And if you have to be home with your family, I'll never question that, but take care of your family and have things in order so you can come and do your job. And that not only is it a job, but that's also a volunteer or a neighbor helping neighbor perspective. Take care and have everything in place so you can go and take care of those that are in need of whatever happened. In Joplin, the fire chief, public works director, completely lost their homes, totally destroyed in the tornado. They were gone for a few hours to take care of it. They secured their family. They made sure everyone was okay. And they came to work and they worked faithfully for weeks to come. But they took care of their family first. And the more we can have that ready to go from a self-reliance perspective, the more we can be of help to others.
I want to go back to that ice storm that you feel like that really shaped a lot of your mindset, your career. It was just a game changer. And I'm curious to know if you feel like there were any game changers, but in a spiritual way. Like I to clarify, I feel like I don't even have to ask if you found spiritual correspondence to, like, physical, a lot of the physical emergency preparedness principles and things. You can also find similarities with being spiritually and emotionally prepared, right? Were there anything, like, have you experienced anything where, again, you had this major point of view, this major perspective shift, or whatever it was, this major shift from this ice storm? Do you feel like there were anything, has there been anything in your career where you've seen a major difference, like a lesson spiritually or emotionally? I don't know if that makes sense, or if that's, it's hard for me to phrase the question. Like,
has my profession shaped my spiritual life in a way?
Speaking spiritually and emotionally, the game changers,
right?
The ones that changed you forever.
So I'll share something I don't think I've ever shared this with anybody, but you're a good friend, and now I guess the rest of the world will know. But yes, I have a very strong spiritual life. Spirituality is important, very important to me. And I feel like I have a close relationship with God, if you will. And I try to embed that relationship into my everyday life, family, work,
right,
hobbies, whatever. So work is part of that. And
which I agree with. I mean, I think that's important.
So when I was hired in Springfield, I was hired in April. I believe it was around the April timeframe, and I was very new. I was trying to learn the job, and I was always praying for guidance to help me be ready for whatever's coming. And throughout the next several months, I noticed in my personal prayers that was becoming more and more intense. I was like, help, what do I need to do to get ready for whatever's, and I can't say that I knew something was coming, but something within my prayers was saying, you need to be prepared. And something was coming.
That's interesting.
That I needed to be prepared for. And then it got to be regular every night. What do I need to do to be ready for whatever's coming? And then it kind of, over time, and my prayers were just like, it became ingrained to me, I need to be ready for something. I need to be ready. And so every day when I went to work, what do I got to do to be ready for something? I had no idea what it was. And then when the ice storm hit, it's that feeling went away. It was like, okay, this is what you needed to be ready for. This is your life change. This is what I want you to learn. And that experience taught me a lot of things, just little lessons learned. I've gone back to for the rest of my career. It was just kind of like the boot camp of my career, if you will. It really kind of set the trajectory.
Even spiritually,
I felt like leading up to that, something was nagging at me. It's like, I I need to make sure, please hold off until I'm ready. I kept saying, wait until I'm ready. Wait until I'm ready. But then I would ask myself, ready for what? What am I even asking for here? I don't even know what I'm asking for here. But then I kept saying, wait till I'm ready. But then I don't know what I'm ready for. But that stopped after the ice storm. And I felt like that was my boot camp to kind of set what I wanted to do in life as a profession, was in emergency management. And that ice storm really shaped it. And to be honest, I mean, and the people I work with they're just all great people. And the ones I'm closest with all have a very strong Christian background and have that same attitude towards a higher being, if you will, God, to help them with that. My deputy director of the ice storm, still a very close friend today. He and I were side by side through the whole thing, has a very similar spiritual aspect in life. And we feed off that.
Do you feel any of that today?
I feel like I'm being guided. I feel like I try to always involve God in what I do, but it was unique in that situation, not to the same level I did then.
So specifically today, there's no impending.
No, I don't feel that same. I don't feel that. There was just something unique leading me up to that ice storm that I just felt like I needed myself be prepared to take on that challenge. And ever since then, I felt like that's kind of been the foundation I've been able to build my profession on.
Something that's interesting is, like, number one, I feel that about today, right now. And I mean, that's kind of been like the last few years, and a lot of it probably, we'll see. And I thought that a lot of it had to do with the fact that I had just gone down this particular field of study that kind of made me biased toward that. And you know, you got conspiracy people that kind of psych themselves out based on, you know, what they're, the content that they're consuming, right? And you kind of get this, you know, those people. And I thought that maybe I'm one of them now. And that's why I feel the way that I do. But I also feel like at the same time, I feel like many people my age and maybe the rising generation, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger, but I feel like people around my age weirdly also feel that same way.
Same way as far as
like there's just
the purpose
that we'll know that there's something coming, or that we need to be
prepared, whatever that
prepared in a way that we're not prepared for. Right. Like it's like the idea that most people have about emergency preparedness, and it's like, yes, we need to be prepared in that way, but it's, you know what, it was like what we heard from the church leaders a while ago, that unprecedented times call for unprecedented measures. I think is the concept that I'm getting at here. Is like, I feel like it's just weird because I feel like it's innate with this generation. Is like, we feel like, and it's an unexplainable, and maybe I'm just crazy, but I feel like there are people I mean, I've talked to people my age that strangely feel the same way, that something is going to change, you know, big game changer coming up, and in a way that we've never seen before. And therefore we're to prepare in a way that we've never prepared for.
That makes perfect sense. And I can relate on a much smaller scale. You described something unexplainable as what led me up to that ice storm. And I feel like using my spiritual intuitions or my spiritual nature in all aspects of my life, not just on Sunday, not just at church, just not when I'm praying, but it needs to be embedded in all of what we do. we will be guided towards what we need to do. But there is more preparedness than just the 72-hour kit. And I think that's what you're alluding to. That makes perfect sense.
Well, yeah. I'll kind of take this opportunity to share my thoughts a little bit more on that, because I always go back to the people that leave. I say leave the church because those are the people that, I mean, that's like the thing that I experience the closest. You know, I guess I haven't had a ton of experience talking to people that have left, that have been a part of another religion and left it. You know, that's a concept that is pretty particular to the Church of Jesus Christ. Is, you know, you have people that are in it, and then you got people that leave it.
Right.
And it's always bugged me. Again, I know that this isn't an exclusive thing to the church, that people stop going to their church and then they stop believing in God. But it's always, I guess in recent years, it bugs me that people leave the church and stop believing in Christ because of what I just got done talking about, because of this feeling and this prophecy that he's coming back. I mean, that we have the signs of the times, and we have, and that's what I mean. It's not exclusive to our church. It's not exclusive to even Christianity.
Right.
I mean, we have world religions. We're all almost the whole world is waiting for Jesus to come back. Even major religions that aren't Christians, and maybe not, you know, a lot of them don't believe that it's the second coming. But isn't it strange that all of us are waiting for this fantastic event to occur, whether it's the second time Jesus comes, or if it's the first time the Messiah comes? Like, we're all waiting for this thing, and yet we have people that are like, yeah, I don't believe it anymore. I've learned in the last 5 years that all 6,000 years of prophecies and all these all this fairy tale that almost everybody is waiting for is just a bunch of malarkey. And I'm just like, that is wild. And maybe it isn't, you know, like that. I don't know if they're just like, if they just cease to believe it at all, or if they just think, yeah, maybe something's coming and it's going to happen, but it's just not the way that anybody thinks, and we're just kind of ride it out. But that's just one thing that I guess has bugged me, just because of the feeling that I feel like I share with a lot of people my age, even people that don't believe in God or are not waiting for Christ, still feel that there's something coming. And just a big change. And so I'm glad that it's just interesting to hear that you kind of had that you've had that, and now it's subsided after something actually. Because while I say that, I also feel like that is a pattern within the scriptures, is that, you know, Noah's Ark was probably the first one that happened.
He was the first emergency manager.
Is that what?
That's what's been told.
Yeah,
there was a sense of something,
and you know, he wasn't the only one. There's a pattern that we see of this big hoopla around something. You know, the prophets are saying something is coming. This event is going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And people, and the pattern is that people just don't buy it. Right. And no matter how many times it happens in the past, we still think that we're the generation that's like, doesn't have anything to do with us. It's not going to happen. we're like the lady that we never thought that it would be
Never thought
us.
it happened to me.
Yeah. And then it does. And to be fair, there are people that it doesn't affect or that it doesn't occur. But it always comes to pass. It
will come to pass. So I'm thinking while you're sharing this, yes. And so why is that? And so I'm thinking my own personal reflection of what did it do to me during that period of time prior to the ice storm, and why is that sense of something out there? And
what's it supposed to do?
What it did for me is I was driven to be ready for whatever this something was. And I mean, not to make light of it, but I wanted to be prepared. And prepared is a big term. What does that really mean? But I wanted to be ready for when something happened. And there was a sense of something that I knew I had to get ready for. And I didn't know what it was. But every day when I went to work, I was taking whatever steps necessary to be better prepared for something. And to your point that you just made, maybe that sense of something, even though there are those that disbelieve and don't believe it's going to happen, but for those that do, is it making us better? Is it helping us get ready for it? Is the spirit of coming, spirit of something is out there and it's real. And I think it helps drive us to be better.
And do you feel like there were things that, like specific things that you were like, that you weren't doing and that you had to start doing in order to, when you decided, because again, you decide this happens and you're like, okay, I got to lock in. I got to become more serious about this. I'm going to be good at this. Do you feel like there were things that specific measurable things that you either weren't doing and now you are doing, or that you were doing? Maybe you drop a hobby in order to make more time for XYZ, or maybe you start, I don't know, I'm not going to try to cook up examples, but were there
for today or back when
that happened?
Yes, there were specific measurable actions. Looking back, what did we do? We were in a very old building, and our job is to bring people together. That's what we do. And our big achievements was having a space and a management system that when those people come together, that they can and will work efficiently and effectively together. And we made significant improvements and changes during those months leading up to be ready to do that. So yes, I could see looking back.
What about in your personal, like you personally, I mean, maybe you start getting up earlier, or maybe you spend more time, like a set amount of more time what was it that, if you can remember, I mean,
what's interesting ago. Is my wife and I, we love to work together in projects outside. We do a lot together. And the winter before, we installed a wood stove in our house because we just wanted to have an alternate heating source in case we ever lost power. And so we installed this wood stove, and I spent that whole 2007 or 2006 year stocking up on wood, split, cut, stack wood, and had it all set up. I left on that Friday night. She didn't have power for 7 days. It was single digit degrees temperature. And she got so warm at times that she had to open up the windows and doors because it was just that wood stove was bigger than it was scaled to be for our house. And so, they're not spiritually, but just in my own personal preparedness outside my profession. When I look back, I always think of, because Angie will sometimes ask, how long have we had a wood stove? And I always remember it because it was always the winter before the ice storm. The winter before the ice storm, we installed that wood stove, and I always remember that was my gift. That was a gift given to me, a tender mercy that I could go to work, and I never worried about my family because whether it was in prayer or whatever, it was my own seeking what do I need to do prepared, installed a wood stove that I no longer had to worry about her being cold or had to be relocated because she didn't have heat. And so what is coming, I mean, there is a second coming, but the events leading up to that is best guess by anybody. But I'm confident spiritually that if we want to be prepared, we will be guided on what the there's small steps.
Right.
There's small steps. But every day will be a 1% something that we can do. And it will all, the grand plan, it all comes together.
And I guess that's my point. I feel like I'm kind of asking bad questions at this point, but that's my point is that while there are small steps to be made, I feel like a lot of people get the idea that small steps are their idea of small steps are really on paper not actually steps at all, because we talk, the language that we use is like that we need to be more serious, or we need to be closer to Christ, or that we need to be more spiritually in tune, or but that's always, to me, that's always been language that's like that doesn't actually, while it's true, and that's why we continue to use the language, because it is true. Those are the things that we need to do, but we don't spend enough time explaining what that actually looks like. What are you doing differently today in order to do that than you weren't doing yesterday? And that's a concept, that doesn't even, again, that's another thing that's not even exclusive to the church. That's everything. I mean, people talk about their goals and what they want to do. It's goal setting. It's the practice of making and achieving goals. And some people know how to. So I think a lot of people make bad goals that sound good, and they are good, but there's no structure to that. There's no actual measurable. Right. There's no. This is exactly how you do it. My New Year's resolution is I want to be a better person. I want to be a nicer person. Or I want to use even something, it can be something so specific as like, I want to use cleaner language. Well, what
does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah. What's how clean is clean? Or, I'm going to make a list of words and then don't say them. Like that's the type of goal that I feel like renders real results. Things you can measure, and so that's why that's kind of what I am getting at is I think that there are things that we should do in order to, everybody will agree that it's like, okay, this is the end of times and we gotta kick it up a notch. But I just personally think that there should be way more discussion as to what kicking it up a notch really actually is. And are we doing that? Are we doing those? So, when we really break it down, are we really doing those things? And if not, then it's really going to be problematic. Right. The storm is going to hit.
And we're not going to be prepared.
So
I think there's also an opportunity, and I think within this last year, a goal has been to find more small revelatory opportunities, if that makes sense. So
opportunities
of receiving revelation. So and very small things in life of what I need to do today or what I need to change, because I don't know what's coming. But I think I can be inspired or guided and prompted to do little things to prepare for that. So
for whatever it is.
For whatever it is. So two things is, within the church to attend the temple. So we don't keep track of how often somebody attends, but this has been the first year I've kept track of how often I've gone through those doors.
Yeah.
And because I set a goal at the beginning of this year, and I'm going to see if I have met that goal. And
which I think is good.
I've kept track of this is the first time I've statistically tracked that I meet that. And then the second thing is, in personal prayer, I think the prophet has encouraged us, there's a revelatory opportunity in prayer, even to have a notepad and a pen. I use notes on my phone, but just in that revelatory moment, even if it's just 5 seconds, whatever thought comes to mind. I don't want to say prompting. It can even be a thought, because it probably won't be all thoughts. Probably aren't all promptings either. But,
right.
And all my thoughts aren't the right direction to go. But just to capture,
jot it down,
and then just act on it. And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But eventually, it's going to get me where I need to go. I have full faith in 100%. It's just capturing those very small. I guess I've been weak in acting on thoughts because I question them.
Oh yeah, that's everybody does
that. So trying to not question it and then jotting it down and then just see what happens. That's how I hope to be better prepared for whatever's coming.
That's a great practice. Is there anything else that you? I mean, I just like to open it up at the end of the episode to just let whatever you want to say to the world, whatever you're passionate about, whatever you want people to know about, or whatever people think that they know about Ryan Nicholls that maybe.
Yeah, no, nothing specific. I've chosen a profession that focuses on preparedness. I've had the opportunity in 20 years since Katrina and all over. And I don't want to be that guy that says I've seen it all, because I have not seen a fraction of it all. I mean, there's a lot out there. But I feel like I've experienced enough to know there's value in preparedness. And that could be physical, spiritual, emotional, mental. But there's value in just thinking about a sense of what is coming and how do I how do I mitigate it? How do I prevent it from causing either problems, or how do I become so self-reliant that when it does happen, I can focus on helping other people and I don't have to worry about my own family. Every day is a day to do that. Every day, I spend every day with 2 preparedness goals to improve, or 2 improvement goals. That's both physically and spiritually. I always try every day to do something physically for my health and spiritually for my spirit. And if there's a daily consistent effort in that, then those revelatory experiences will come, and I think we'll be ready for whatever's coming, because there is a sense of something coming, and there's going to be, and but when Christ does come, he's preparing the world for that. Right. And when I say preparing the world, that's preparing you, that's preparing me, that's preparing everybody. That's who he's preparing. He's preparing the world. I'm in a profession of preparedness. He's preparing all of us for his coming. And what does that mean individually? How is he preparing me for his coming? It may be to do better in my profession. It may be to make sure my family is self-reliant. Now that I have several married kids, make sure they're following similar principles, just to prepare. He is preparing the world for his coming. And for us, that means there's a sense of that we need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, that's I couldn't agree more. I mean, that is something, if it's not already clear, that's something that I'm pretty passionate. It's just on the forefront of my mind for whatever reason. It's the main reason I'm out here in St. Louis.
I'm just sure my next ice storm is coming. I just don't know what it is.
Well, appreciate you coming out. You kind of had to drive through an ice storm to get here.
I did. It was a little slick. It was a little slippery, but we made it. But no, hey, this has been quite the experience. I've enjoyed this, and I didn't know what to expect, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's good. I actually need you to make that clear because I need more people here. I'm struggling to get people on here, and I need you to vouch for it.
I can vouch for it. Well, if you need anybody else in this world of emergency management preparedness, I've got plenty of colleagues that love to talk.
Yeah, we might revisit that one day.
I've got a really good one from the American Red Cross. Anyone, there's a lot of options.
Well, I appreciate that.
That's been good.
Cool. Well, we'll end it there.
Thank you.